public hearings which are conducted by Parliament, be there, be visible, and give your views so that you are included and you won't suffer from exclusive budgeting approach. I'm trying to rush so that I get to where I have to present. These are the roles of Parliament. I'm going to focus on oversight and budget approval. The other functions, just ignore them, but Parliament has got a role of representing you. You are honorable members. You are representing your communities, is it? So that is the role which you are performing. As at the same time, the National Parliament, which you are aware of, it has got the duty of representing the citizens of Zimbabwe, be it within our borders or outside the borders. Law-making process, budget approval, and oversight. So the oversight part in budget approval these are the two functions which I'm going to focus on. Right. What does the law say when it comes to crafting the budget? It says, I talked about section 141, it says facilitate public involvement in the legislative and other processes. So whenever you hear that Parliament has announced issues which are related to budget formulations, in the name of consultations, in the name of feedbacks, don't ignore those calls. Be there and air your views and give your opinions, which are going to be included during the budget crafting, budget formulation by the Minister of Finance. And over section 13 and section 22, which is in Public Finance Management Act. I'm not going to read them. Right. Stages of the annual budget process. I want to focus on where Parliament is visible and where the executive is visible. As you can see, we have got this drafting stage, and we have got the legislative stage, implementation stage, and audit stage. You know, the executive is visible on all these stages. If I'm saying executive, minimum ministries, government agencies, departments, my Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education is part of the executive. Executive ndio inogadzira cabinet. Saka cabinet kana my ministries kana the executive, they are visible throughout this cycle or these processes. Parliament now, where is it visible? It is visible during the drafting stage. How? Ndio patakati public consultations akuitwa. Ali munoona ma MP achitenderera pano vakamboita engage such kind of activity. Ndio patuti the drafting stage. They are gathering information which are going to be used to allocate the resources. The information which is going to be used on how to gather the resources which have to be spent according to the needs and priorities which might be listed by the executive. Because it is the executive which lists the priorities through a certain document which I'm going to talk about. So I'm saying the Finance Ministry or Treasury issues guidelines to spending departments. I don't want to focus much on that. Spending departments submit draft budget and so forth. Parliament manje ndio painosimuka yoyakwamuri chiti moda kuti budget riitwe sei, mari zvose allocate sei. Ndio pamuno tinodawo mari semayuthi kuti dziite sei, dzigadzire anonzi ma stadiums ayaya tuwane kungotandara agadzire chimwe chizvi
rehabilitative centers,
rehabilitate these recreational facilities, something like that. Ndio panoya Parliament painenge ichibvunza paipai vaona information iyoyo vanobva vaneipa treasury yonzaiwa isi patakandoungana nevanhu takaudzwa izvi, saka imba kuti allocate ma resources and you make sure you allocate them according to these priorities which we managed to get from the people of Zimbabwe. So Parliament is visible during the drafting stage, and you must be visible again. How? Through that section which I talked about, 141, which I said there is need to involve the public. So Parliament, when Parliament is coming to you, it is trying to involve you in these processes. So if you ignore Parliament, then it means you are cut from the processes. So you are visible through Parliament. You get your views to be known to the executive through your representatives, through the legislatures which you have voted for in any particular general election. Then again, during the legislative phase, this is when the budget is presented before the National Assembly or before Parliament or before the members of Parliament by the Minister of Finance. When the budget is presented by the Minister of Finance, according to the law, it has to be debated. That is when it is scrutinized to see if it is in line with the views which were gathered from the public to see if the resources were allocated according to national commitments as well as international commitments, the Abuja Declaration which we're talking about. You know, there are a number of commitments which we have, which resources must be allocated according to those measures. So if Parliament is not happy with the way resources are allocated across the spending units across the ministries, they advise the executive through the Minister of Finance that you need to amend your budget. You need to move resources from this spending unit or from this program to this program. You need to increase resources to health and reduce resources from what? From this ministry. Something like that. That is the legislative part. That is when Parliament is visible. That is when the legislatures are visible. So we are moving now to the implementation or execution of the budget. You know, when budget is approved by Parliament, it has to be executed. Mari dzafana kuchitanga kushandiswa nema-ministry aya. But pavari kushandisa mari idzi, Parliament again it's visible. Ndoba inenge tichisubmita ma-reports enyu kwatiri. Tichiona kuti makati mimi mari dzichanda kutenga ma-sanitary ware. Yakaenda here mari yacho. Kana isina, then they start to engage the executive and interrogate their spending behavior. For example, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, it was engaged on the issue of sanitary ware. They were given resources by Treasury, but they failed to utilize the resources. So that was a problem. And they cited procurement issues as a problem. So we are saying now, as honorable members at lower levels, you are able to approach your ministry to interrogate them on their spending behavior pertaining the disbursed resources which must reach the intended beneficiaries, who are the school-going children. Because the resources were disbursed and they were not utilized. Then you must interrogate the ministry. As the honorable members, as junior honorable members, you must be visible as well, representing your communities, your schools, something like that. So we are saying now, the implementation part, National Assembly is visible again, because they demand statutory reports from the executive, which they have to scrutinize and analyze and come up with the reports which are presented before the Parliament, and they also call the executive or the ministries for oral evidence so that they can give or clarify their spending behavior if there's a need for them to clarify. So this part is very important because it helps to pick errors, it helps to pick issues at an early stage and manage to apply clinical measures in order to put everything in track or on track. Then we come up to the last part, which is the audit phase. This is when the Auditor General comes in and try to scrutinize or to examine the books of accounts by these ministries. So when they come up with their report as the Auditor General, he has to or she has to present the report in the National Assembly. That report is then taken by the Public Accounts Committee. The committee inonge yakushandisa report yauya na Auditor General. Anenge achiti apa mari yakabiwa, apa mari yakarasha kushanda, Parliament yakuchita na vanhu vayoti makaba mari ka. Imakarasha kushandisa mari apa. Mari ingaidzoke. Ava vanhu ngavatosungiswa ndo pa audit phase. So I'm saying Parliament is visible throughout these processes. And you are part of Parliament. If you feel that there is something which is not going on well, you need to interrogate, you need to seek advice be it from Parliament Budget Office, be it from any other platform, so that you can approach certain stakeholders in order to have resources reach the intended beneficiary. And you are part of the beneficiaries. For some of the resources that are not reaching the beneficiaries, this is just a summary of what I was saying, the budget cycle, which starts from the drafting stage, then budget approval, then execution, and the audit phase. Then we go, I talked about this, when I say the Parliament is visible through analyzing the Auditor General's report. That green part, it shows the legislative arm, where I'm saying they are duty to analyze the Auditor General's report, which is presented by the Auditor General. Then they have got a duty to approve the budget, which has been presented by the Minister of Finance. Then they have got a duty again to monitor the budget execution processes. And we've got the tools which I'm going to discuss with you. Then we have the executive MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. They've got a duty to utilize the resources. And when they are utilizing the resources, they have to produce reports, which are called statutory reports. My reports are vanosungirwa kubudisa nemutemo uri mu Public Finance Management Act. mukazowana mukana mazokura kuna na section 31, 32, 33, 34 and 35 ndio vanosungirwa kubudisa ma annual financial statements, ma quarterly financial statements, ma monthly financial statements. Vanofanira zvekare kuresponda kuma audit queries. Auditor General yari tataura riya report yari vanodanwa neParliament vonzi makaba mari apa, they have to respond to those audit queries. Then we have the Auditor General mukatataura kuti isusu examine the financial statements, he issue an audit report, something like that. Then we have the Ministry of Finance, they have to implement the recommendations which are given the Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts Committee yaya ndataura yaya pavanopuwa report na Auditor General vanobva vagadzira ma recommendations avanondoisa ku Ministry of Finance, because Ministry of Finance is the mother ministry, ndiyo inotungamira mamwe ma ministry ese. Saka vaona kuti pakabiwa mari ku Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, vanobva vaisa ma recommendations ku Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance yofanira kuchiresponda kuma recommendations aya in the name of Treasury Minutes. Treasury Minutes is the response which is given to the what, to the legislative by the executive, responding to the what recommendations which are highlighted in the Public Accounts Report. And zvimwe zvisiyana nazvo pamunenge ungofanira ni paParliament apo kuti vanofanira kumonitor budget, who analyze the Auditor General's report, vano approve a budget. Nokuti mimi you are part of Parliament. These are your duties. So you must be able to monitor the budget execution. Mari iri kufamba zvakanaka here ku Ministry of Youth. Yakanzi zvezvo ichazoda kundoita rehabilitate macenters atakataura. Yakasvika here mari yacho. Kana isina toita sei? Kuzvikoro kwedu maground akamira sei? Akati rehabilitated here. Ku Ministry of Health kotsvikira tindoshawa zvatinoda. You need to have that mindset as you are growing up to interrogate the spending behavior of government. Right. This one is not quite visible, but this is just the Zimbabwe annual budget calendar. Kuti isusu calendar rebudget, kugadzirwa kwebudget calendar yacho rakambomira sei. Budget yedu inotanga kushanda musi wa 1 January. Richipera musi wa or financial yedu inotanga musi wa 1 January, yopera musi wa 31 December. Ndipo panoti financial year yemuZimbabwe. Dzimwe nyika dzinosiyana, but yedu it starts on the 1st of January up to the 31st of January. That is how the physical duration is defined. Saka titaura zvese tataura kuti kana vanhu vakuda kugadzira budget munyika, Ministry of Finance ndiyo inotanga kubudisa inonzi budget strategy paper. Ndambogaya kuti platform iyi vanachataura vachazvibate. Saka budget strategy paper ndiyo nebudget secular ndiyo zvinongotaura kuti tavhura musangano wokugadzira budget wedu wenyika. Vanogadzira inonzi budget strategy paper. Rinozondopresentwa muParliament. Iri rinenge taura ma priorities anoda kuitwa gore iroro. Ndio budget strategy paper. Kana risati rabuda iroro, budget renyika harikwanisi kutanga kugadzira. Because mutemo unotaura kuti panofanira kunge pane budget strategy paper. Taibva ipapo Parliament yapo budget strategy paper yakushita mahearings aya ndaitaura aya. Nokuti vakuziva zvokufambira vachindotaura kuvanhu kuti isusu tinoda kuti Ministry of Finance yakati zvatoda kuita kugadzira migwagwa, kupa mayouth mari yokuti vatange maprojects and so forth. Ndio pandati mimi wanikwa ipapo. Zvapera izvozvo budget rogadzirwa ropresentwa muParliament, ndio panana patauya panapa patataura patati approval stage pane green part apo. Tapedza ma consultations budget rinoya richipresentwa panapa. Zvakasiya kuonekwa nenyaya screen out chidi. Saka ndo mafambiro atinoita pabudget annual budget calendar iyi. Ndiro ngoti Ministry of Finance inotanga yoparura musangano. Isusu touya tichishadeta ma-public hearings as Parliament, tozondovapa ma responses from the people. Ivo vogadzira budget ravo, Ministry of Finance voya nawo kuParliament, rodebate manje, roscrutiniziwa. Raonekwa pakashata, vokunyora pasi. Vondodana Ministry of Finance uya vondotaura kuti apa paita so, apa ukadai zvinenge zviri nani, apa ukadai zvinofamba zvakanaka, nokuti vanhu vakataura zvakati. Vakarega kudaro, Parliament yotesati approve budget. Kana risina kuapuruvhiwa, ashandisa mari yenyika pasina budget raapuruvhiwa, imhosva inosungisa. Ukatarisa muConstitution section 309, imhosva inosungisa kushandisa mari yenyika pasina budget. Saka vasvika vawirirana mutemo unonzi Appropriation Act wochibuda, mari yochitanga kushandiswa zvayo munyika. Ndio paya patabva paapproval, tachienda paimplementation stage, yochitanga kuchidisbezwa neMinistry of Finance bijana ichienda kwainofanira kuenda. Asi pavari kushandisa mari vanenge vachibudisa mareports. Anofanira kutaridza transparency and accountability. kuti mari yedu taishandisa zvakaita sei. Then auditor ozouya at the end of the fiscal year kuchiongorora kuti mari dziya dzamakavapa dzakashanda zvakanaka here, pane mhosva pachibatwa, pasina mhosva pachirumbidzwawo, opa ma-audit opinions ake zvichifamba zvakadaro. Then vaya vozotora report iya veparliament vakuchisungisa vakaba mari, vakuchiti vakaba mari nedziya dzadzosai, vakuchigadzira mutemo, vaona pane ma-loopholes. They make use of the audit report to come up with what amendments of Public Finance Management Act or any other financial regulation or policy. Second, in brief, that is what I can say. Right. Pana nemvunza. Right. So we are now moving to. Thank you.
Ubvunza kuti Ministry of Youth yachiri kuda mari and yaita budget rawo ma-approve. Kana makuvapa mari munovapa sei? Munovapa yese yakakwana here kana kuti pane zvamunoita?
It's a very important question. Very good question. Right. You know, like I said, when the budget is being approved, they approve both revenue estimates and expenditure estimates. When the budget is being approved, number one, there is nothing, there's no money in the purse. They are estimates. They are expecting to receive something for that particular financial year. Vane vachitasira kugashira mari kubva kuna kuma-revenue sources akasiyana-siyana. Saka vatorina mari. Right. Vaita kuti budget rokuti mimi tagadzira budget renyika, we are expecting to receive 9 billion munyika yese. 9 billion ndiye tichaita appropriate or allocate across this ministry. Tichapa Ministry of Youth 1 billion, for example. Hapana mari yapiwa, anditi? Right. As Ministry of Youth means that what we are saying 1 billion gorero. Saka mari inouya mbijana ichibva kuma-revenue sources. Saka hazvigoni kuti vapiwe kahwari nokuti inenge chiyachi zvishomane sho. Inenge isipo. Saka ikatoti vagashira kuma-revenue sources vagashira $, kana titoti $100, ko pane ma-ministry 20. Obviously vachati mimi ndakumbokupa ivo mbijana iyo. Ndakumbokupa mbijana iyo. Mbijana kusvika pa100 yata receive. Hatingandoipi ministry 1. Tomirira kugashira imwe mari to allocate in that way. Is that clear? Yeah. Second, that is how the resources are allocated or are dispersed during the budget execution.
I think to just add on that, the ministries also in the summer improvement in my way plans out. They put in the next quarter, what is it that we want to do? For example, second quarter to meet in a parliament sitting. That's when to throw in the budget. They go to the parliament without a sitting in a parliament, which is how much. Then we will have, like what we say, Marine people. So sometimes we're not going to get a budget, say 100 million. Then Minister of Finance will actually tell you we don't have enough resources. Cut it down. One open to pay 60 million instead of 100 million.
You work like my revenues like mbaita mune toll gates munana vakati then so Mario painouya maybe on monthly base ndopa munobva mai allocate.
Ministry of Finance, I don't know how they collect or account for money, but basically yes, that's the principle. It takes knows my revenue sources, and I take it to know my revenue sources.
Yeah, he is correct. Which means on monthly basis you need to submit what you call cash flow, cash flows to the treasury. Cash flows, these are the budgets, monthly budgets. You are expecting to utilize this much for this particular activity, and the treasury also will try to vet the priorities across the ministries. Then they see pressing issues. For example, in the health department, they might opt to give health more resources than youth department. It depends on the priorities for that on that particular period. So if, for example, we are having issue of obviously more resources will be channeled to agriculture in order to deal with that problem or that circumstance. But Marino and I aingonzi wika one. Right. Public.
Sorry. Can I just say, there's a paper that's going to circulate. Just fill in date and ask your name, ID number, and then from to. You just fill in where did you come from, your then amount you write the total amount yamabhadhara, and from kubva kumba kusvika panapa amount yamabhadhara. Okay, where next one? Okay, yeah. So that's that. Just write how much you pay. You from town to Ruai to here, man. Let's be realistic. $2 a dollar. That's it. All right. So that's how much. So you say $2.50 whatever you paid from home to town. So you add those. Public expenditure. Okay, so fill in one way. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think what I need is more of clarification, because I was very much involved in the other budget process. I think it was the 2021 budget process. And by then you were doing my programs in ZTN. So Parliament, through the Ministry of Mr. Mtuli, projected to have 31% inflation rate. Pavaitama capping of anticipating inflation. Then we later on it was at 51 to 55%. So pakatola supplementary budget. And we understand how sometimes very fluid our parliament is. I wanted to get the oversight for a parliament, especially from a supplementary budget process, because oftentimes they're done very fast, they're expedited to make sure that they cater for whatever that is happening in the current country currently. So I wanted to understand how effective is that. Then secondly, it is the issue of Auditor's General's report. I wanted to ask, what is the recent report? Maybe I could be late with my files, but when when last was released the latest report? Did I go to it?
Okay, let me start with the last question.
Okay, so the last question I wanted to say, how effective are these reports? Because normally when we read the recommendations, it's normally the same issue framed up differently. So the illicit financial flows, we understand the public figures and all that. But with what power does it have for it to restore sanity within the financial market of Zimbabwe? That was my two questions.
Right. With respect to the last question, we are in the process of no, there's a proposal, not in the process of amending the Audit Office Act in order to give more powers to the Auditor General so that they can hand over culprits or anyone who is guilty when it comes to using public funds in a bad way to the prosecutors or to the police. But for now, the Auditor General lacks such kind of powers to report any kind of financial misuse to the what? To the law enforcers or to the Prosecutor General, which means to say her job is to come up with a report and submit it to Parliament, and it ends there. On the issue of recurring issues, I'm sure if you do your analysis properly, much of these auditees are being audited in arrears. So some of the audit recommendations which you are seeing, maybe they relate to 2018 financial year, 2014 financial year. Why? Because the Auditor General is conducting the audit of these auditees in arrears because of certain problems. They were failing to submit financial statements according to the legislated time frames. But if you make use of those entities or auditees who are up to date with respect to submitting their financial accounts for audit, I'm sure you can see a positive progression, a positive development with respect to governance issues which were noted during this fiscal year and previous fiscal years. According to certain audit parameters, for example, the Auditor General has got five areas to focus on: governance, revenue collection, service delivery. There are 5 of them. But if you check at the rate at which they are changing from negative to positive, from red to green zone, I'm sure make use of the auditees who are or which are up to date with respect to submitting these accounts for audit. If you make use of those ones which are being audited in arrears, it might misguide you. But in terms of the Auditor General reporting these statutory reports to Parliament, she is now up to date because she has brought the 2021 Auditor General's report to Parliament on in around June, according to the legislated time frame. And we are now waiting to receive the they are now working on the 2022. Though the time it is still there for them to come up with that report. But the 2021 Auditor General's report is now out. Though it had some issues which the Auditor General clarified because of late submission of these reports by certain auditees. The first one which talked about supplementary budgets. Of late, the legislatures were taking supplementary budget as something which is very important. But if you check with the recent one, supplementary budget which was approved 3 weeks ago, they've done a lot of work. It was scrutinized to the last full stop, and a lot of positive changes were done. You know, the problem which was happening all along, it was because when the Minister of Finance was bringing the structuring supplementary budget, he could even slide in or just put something very urgent together with the supplementary budget to an extent that you don't delay to approve. Because there's something which is very urgent, something which is very maybe life-threatening, something which needs an immediate attention from the utilization of the real which have to be approved. But now, around this time, he tried to do that, but they stopped it. Why? Because we notified them that there are some issues with this supplementary budget. There are certain gray areas which need to pay attention on, and they managed to debate it in detail, and they managed to come up with a very positive agreement with the executive, and now it was approved around 3 weeks ago. It was not a crash program like before. Let me proceed. Any question again? Right, we are now moving to public expenditure monitoring and analytical tools, which are oversight tools, which you are expected to make use of as junior parliamentarians. You need to make use, even at school. If you are seeing something which is not going on well, make use of these things. At micro level, scrutinize these things, especially when it comes to utilization of school fees, of revenue which is generated by your school. Right? When we take the reports, budget performance reports, or in-year monitoring information, our reports and finally produced on monthly basis according to certain provisions of Public Finance Management Act. They have to be produced on quarterly basis, half-yearly and annually. Failure to do that is a violation of the law, and it's an act of misconduct which is chargeable according to certain punitive measures which are defined in the Public Finance Management Act. So these reports should be submitted according to the legislated time frames. The first quarter report should be submitted at the end of January, February, March, April, May, at the end of May. Because after a quarter is lapsed, you are given 60 days to prepare the reports, then you submit it before the end of May or last day of May of each fiscal year. Then we go into the second quarter, it has to be submitted by end of August, something like that, up to the last quarter financial or budget performance reports. So these performance reports should be submitted according to the law. And even your government schools, they produce these quarterly reports. But the local, those which are under the authority of councils, I don't know how they operate. But these reports should be produced on quarterly basis, on monthly basis, and on annual basis according to the law. We have got the internal and external audit reports. My reports are anoshandiswa zvekare to scrutinize the spending behavior or spending pattern of these spending units. And the auditor general, my internal auditors in my ministry, vanofamba zvekare vachiita ma-audits avo, ma-reports avo, they have to be utilized. Saka iwe unogona kana auditor vakamuzwa auditor waya pachikoro, unogona kungovoisa but unogona kudzingwa. Because it is for public consumption. Any audit report is made for public to consume, even for the ministry. So make use of these tools when it comes to scrutinizing, when it comes to put some checks on government expenditure or on the behavior of how spending is done by the government. We have verification visits which are conducted by portfolio committees. Apa vanenda ma-verification visits ndepaipanonzwa kuti bridge rakavakwa ne$6 million. Saka vanenge vaida kundo kurikonzaila manje bridge indi rakamboita sei handiti ya Saka ndo pamunosvika moti okay pakashandiswa 6 million but maundoona kabridge kachikarobva pana pasvika. It's not reconciling. What is on the ground and what is being reported as spent is not reconciling. Then they engage some oral evidence, then scrutinize how the resources were utilized, audit is conducted so that the culprit will be called for justice. Then we have the question and answer session. This is happening on Wednesday. I'm sure you are aware of this one. Very much TV. The minister. The question, the question is any question which you might want to ask or to direct to any minister. One. It's another tool which can be used to monitor the spending or the execution of the budget. Questions which might be directed might relate to budget execution processes, might relate to how resources were disbursed across the ministries. You can be visible. You can make use of these tools. Kuti Maria kashanda pachikoro pane pamari dziri kumboshanda sei. Unongotozi. Because atipinda kuma sports.
Panobvunza.
We have oral evidence session. Kana paonekwa kuti ministry haisi kushandisa mari zvakanaka, vanodanwa for oral evidence. Vobvunza kuti mimi mari yenyu haisi kufamba zvakanaka. Nenyaya yemareports atakawana, muri kuti makavaka bridge re6 million. But bridge takandoriona asisi kuenderana. Then they justify or they give clarity on that one. Saka oral evidence sessions are conducted between the legislatures or between the members of parliament and the executive in order for the executive to clarify certain issues before the committee. Right? We have the plenary debates. Madebates amunonzwa achitwa nema-MP aya vachiscrutinize nyaya dzekushandiswa kwemari, nyaya dzema-human rights and so forth. But the issues which are related to how resources were spent might be discussed during the plenary sessions in the house. You know, you're going to kukurukurwa. Imimi ati munosita here.
Muchite.
Right. Whether they must specialize investigation by portfolio or thematic committees. Our must specialize there which one to dana auditor general or audit yake in terms of section 10 of the Audit Office Act. Kuti apa taona kuti padiwa mara. Chimbo investigator. Chimboona zviri kufamba sei. Better know the notice with motion and the notice without motion. Who can differentiate the two? Notice with motion if you sit in your house. How do you define notice with motion and notice without motion? Right, notice with motion. This one is a question which is asked without any notice. And it has to be answered orally, and it is subject to debating by the honorable members in the house. Sakabaiba novhunzwa mubvunzo unonzi notice without motion. Unongovhunzwa pasina kuudzwa kuti ndichakubvunza mubvunzo wakati. The minister anenge achibvunzwa. Wabvunzwa mubvunzo uyoyo minister anofanira kudaira ipapo kwete kuti ndichazondofunga. Aya. Kana adavira kana pane honorable member asina kuzvinzwisisa zvakanaka anotendedza kutodebate kuti namadaira atina kuzvinzwisisa muri kuti kudini. Andidiya. Iye inonzi notice without motion, it must be in writing. You respond in writing by the executive or by the respective minister. It is not subject to debating. Inobva zvabvira ipapo. Saka ndomamwe matools anogona kushandiswa scrutinize or kana kuinterrogate how resources are being executed or utilized by the executive. Notice with motion and notice without motion. We have public hearings and consultations which are talked about. The purpose of these or of these activities is to ensure that the needs of the people are addressed in order to ensure prudent spending. What's by parendwa kuvanhu kuda kunonzwisisa kuti imimi munoda kuitirwa chii kuno kuprovince, toda kuvakirwa dhamu remvura. Saka takuda kuchiona resources are being directed to the needs of the people. So in research it's called need analysis. So the whole purpose of public hearings is to understand the needs of the people, which have to be attended to immediately or within that fiscal year, in order to ensure prudent spending. My resources are directed towards the intended purposes. Kuti anongo allocate vanhu vasingazivi kuti maresources ari kufamba sei. Kuda kuti mugwagwa ugadzirwe. Ndio zvakakoshera public hearings and so forth. Saka kuda ku ensure that the needs of the people are addressed head on, right? Enforcing compliance with the law, ungoda kuti mutemo ngawatevedzerwe, right? Follow up of treasury minutes, right? These are the submissions which we received which were received by the Health Portfolio Committee. I'm sure Mr. Lungani talked about these things, is it?
Yes.
So these are the issues which we didn't. I just want to go to the responses of the minister. Right? The minister responded to these needs. Nobody told out to go in sanitary way. And it told to go in Zakati. Government is committed to funding health sector, and the target is to eventually meet the Abuja declaration of 15% of the national budget. Last year, they managed to divert 15% of the total resources. But this year, they are committing to reach this international target. And they are also saying we need to make sure that issues which are related to chronic illnesses are addressed, and issues which are related to sanitary way are addressed. These are the responses by the minister, which I'm sharing with you in brief. In terms of education, I'm sure there are issues which you are aware of. The issue of color, it was talked about during these consultations, and the parents were complaining about the burden in terms of the cost that the government must chip in, government must cushion them, because it's becoming unbearable. So the minister responded to such kind of issues. The minister also responded to the issue of more schools in order to reduce distances, especially to the ECD learners, sanitary way not reaching beneficiaries. The minister of finance responded again. So as the honorable member, Iwewe, you need to understand, you need to see how you can scrutinize these things. If you are not receiving, when the budget is going to be approved, these issues must be addressed, and the feedback is going to come to the citizens through feedback meetings which are going to be conducted by Parliament. So the minister responded to issues of education by saying we are going to increase teacher people ratio, to reduce teacher people ratio, which means more teachers are going to be hired. And they talked about issues which are related to construction of classrooms in order to uplift the facilities. They talked about ICT and so forth. But I'm interested in paragraph number 39, addressing the plight of the girl child remains a priority, and the drive on the provision of sanitary way to school going girls in rural areas will continue in 2023. So if you are from the rural areas, but I heard that you are from Harare, all of you. But those in the rural areas must make sure that sanitary way is addressed and it manages to reach what the intended beneficiary. This is a very important item which is directed to you. With respect to social protection, BIM, I'm sure there's a statement of intent which was given by the president. I call it a statement of intent. Was it? We are going to have free education in 2023, is it? Mm-hmm. Did you hear that? You don't read newspapers. Mm-hmm. Free education by what? By
2018.
That is what we call statement of what intent. So a statement of intent which is not legislated, it's difficult to implement. What is on the ground currently is BIM in the name of social protection. So Minister of Finance didn't talk about the free education because there's no law which is supporting that. It has to be legally framed so that you receive free education. What is in the law is basic education assistance module, which the minister says is going to scale up the support in line or towards the BIM, going to scale up the support towards the food mitigation, drug towards the controlling drug abuse approach by our youth, which is DSA, and is going to scale up resources towards support for children in difficulties, those child-headed families. So you need to understand these things. If you are a real beneficiary, real what leader, I mean, like what you were saying here in the morning, the leadership and so forth, that a good leader must be a good follower, a good public speaker must be a good listener, something like that. You were talking about those things. So if you want to you need to make follow-up of these things at a micro level. Are we doing something in relation to solving drug abuse, substance abuse, something like that? Are we doing something in terms of identifying people who should be under BIM as beneficiaries? Because as the honorable MP, you must play a role, even if you are not included. But you must go with the name to the head. This learner must be in BIM. If you sit in the committee, or whenever you are going to have a committee for selecting these people or such kind of beneficiaries, may you please take into account this learner, because I understand the background of the learner. How? Then you explain. We are representing at micro level. Representation is not something which is at macro level. It starts at a small level. So it's your, you have to play your part to make sure that those who are in this list are the true beneficiaries. It reflects the true picture of people who have to benefit through these social protection facilities. So this is what I can share with you. And the Minister of Finance said is going to scale up the support towards such kind of things. ICT is an enabler of having what a learned community. It was talked about. Public transport in terms of buses to ferry school going children was talked about. So this was said by the portfolio committee, but we are interested in the response from the minister. But this was said by the portfolio committee. They managed to gather voices from the people. They managed to represent the people. How? They managed to come with information in relation to how school-going children should be ferried to their schools and back home. They said we need zip codes which are particularly meant for school-going children. Is it? You need to check if this is going to be addressed by the budget. Once it is addressed, then it means it is inclusive. It is including you. Because we are getting into the buses where we have drunkards, where we have people speaking vulgar and so forth. So you need to have your own buses. That is what you need to discuss when you will be sitting there. Don't just think of food when you are sitting. We are adults. So what I'm saying is that don't think of unnecessary things, but think about yourself. Standing ovation when Victoria Falls last year. The president, child president, Marwa speech, it was the ICT proposal kind of. So what I'm pleading to you, or what I'm seeking from you, is to make sure that you follow these processes. Then you read wisely in order for you to be able to scrutinize how resources are being spent, be it at a small scale. You can engage even the honorable member from your community and give him or her some views to discuss in the National Assembly during their sittings. So this is what I can say to you. Right. This one, social welfare, what was said concerning these people. I talked about children, difficult circumstances, the elderly. Let me exclude that one, does not concern you. Then youths, women, persons with disabilities, something like that. Then let me jump this one. Let me go to this one. These were the issues which were taken into, which were received by the portfolio committee on youth. It says education loans and grants. Educational loans and grants must be given to what? The higher and tertiary education going students. You will be investing maybe in the next 3 years or 2 years. I heard some of you are in Form 1, some of you are in Form 2.
Group Form 1.
Must be rehabilitated. Then empowerment, support young entrepreneurs must be supported with more resources in order to empower the youth. And you need to benefit. Ask your honorable member, where is this very located, so that I can go there and get the resources for me to start my project. You can educate even those school leavers. Right, arts fund should be actualized. The creation of arts centers, youth hubs in every ward. These things you must be aware of them so that you can interrogate how resources are spent in the world, in the country. Then we have children in difficulties. We have some of these guys in here among the boys. People who might fall in this category.
Thank you.
So, this is what was gathered by the committee when they traveled or visited various centers in the country. They heard that the youths are abusing drugs and they end up in this kind of state. So there's need to put more resources channeled in favor of this age group, so that they find something to do, and they tend to minimize time or to waste their time abusing drugs while they are occupied by something that is productive. It was gathered, it was received, and it was presented before the Minister of Finance. We are interested in the responses from the Minister of Finance now. These are the responses from the Minister of Finance. He said the empowerment of women and youth cannot be overemphasized. Therefore, the Treasury will continue to capacitate empowerment institutions such as Empowerment Bank and the Zimbabwe Women's Bank, Development Bank, to facilitate access to loans by young entrepreneurs and women. We are the young entrepreneurs. This bank is going to be capacitated. You need to look for the resources from this bank via your MP, via your councillor, via any other authorities. Make sure that you get the resources. And they said we are not going to this is the Minister of Finance on a topical issue of rampant drug abuse among the youth. This requires urgent attention. It's going to be addressed and you need to be visible. Be it at school, but it's you should be visible. Take offer counseling through the what the HOG, what GNC did. GNC did. Saka ndizvo zvaunofana kuita izvozvo. Unongonyora kaproposal kako chaiso ngatimbeta zvima pachikoro. That is leadership. That is oversight. Right. Recommendations. These were the recommendations which were given by the portfolio committee, which we are still waiting to check the uptake degree or uptake percentage in the final budget. So I just selected the recommendations which are targeting your age group. It said the government import more buses for school-going children. This has to be addressed. So we are going to check, after the budget has been approved, you are going to check the quantum of the resources which are going to be allocated towards the procuring buses which are going to cater for the school-going children. We are going to check that if the budget has managed to put much resources in order to cater for health services, be it in the rural areas or in the urban areas, in order to address SDG number 3. Then the education budget be increased to support practical subjects, science subjects, especially in rural areas. We need to check if the budget is going to talk to this or to address this recommendation. That is the government strengthens, and let me jump this one, but it has to do with the children and the youth. Right, the budget should support the establishment of the women's bank. We talked about it. The budget should go beyond the scrapping. We talked about this one is very important. Should scrap the duty for imported sanitary wear to support the domestic production of sanitary wear. There was a proposal that we must, instead of giving us imported sanitary wear, can you put resources aside in order to come up with a plant which is going to produce locally sanitary wear, so that we get rid of importing. We substitute the importation of this product by producing it locally. So that was the proposal. So we're going to check with the budget if the minister is going to put resources aside so that we might have a plan to produce these products locally, which are going to be given again for free to our school-going children, to our rural-based girls and so forth. So it's another issue we are going to check if it's going to be taken into account at the end of the final budget. Budget should support rehabilitation of sports and recreation facilities in communities, something like that, in order to get rid of drug abuse. So these are the recommendations which were drafted or which were crafted by the committee and handed over to the Minister of Finance. These are the legal frameworks when it comes to monitoring the budget. This is the last slide. Because this is the law. I realize that if I try to get into law, you don't even understand the constitution. You don't know there's some.
Yes, he is violent. They don't understand. They don't.
Right. But what is important is for you to understand the monitoring thing.
He doesn't know anything.
How to monitor the resource utilization. How to monitor how to monitor how the resources have managed to reach the intended beneficiary. Check if the resources are reaching you as the beneficiary. How are you going to do that? Get the reports or advise the honorable member from your area that you need to go and understand the budget performance reports for this ministry and check if resources for sanitary wear, resources for rehabilitation of recreational facilities have reached the ministry and managed to be utilized according to the work plan. This is how you can come in as the junior parliament. So don't ignore these things. You can even educate other one or two. You know, it will help to shape up our country in a right direction. Right? This is just my last slide, which says out of difficulties grow miracles. I mean, I know you are facing a lot of difficulties, which we are talking about. And the headmaster was on time, yes, the boarding master was on time. These are a lot of difficulties which we face. But out of those difficulties, try to grow what? Miracles. Do miracles. You need to weigh the benefits versus the what? The or the disadvantages or the costs. Then you focus on the what? On the benefits more than the what? The costs. It will help you to come up with miracles from the way you will be discharging your duties. But if you are in the luckiest 1% of the humanity, you know, people who are very lucky in